I'm Father Russ Carmichael, and this is Street Talk. I want to thank you all for allowing me back into your homes on this evening or whatever time it is on where you're watching us. I have a great guest with me tonight, okay, which I'm very happy about. I have, of course, across from me, Dominic Cotton, my co-host, and tonight we are talking with Senator Bob Duff. Senator,
Thanks
bless
for having
you.
me. Thank
Glad
you.
to have you. And maybe we want to talk a little bit about
what Senator Duff has done for us. Well, I mean, first of all, I want to get out. We have a personal connection that I didn't realize until after the fact. You were the campaign manager for my neighbor that I grew up with, Marilyn Robinson, when she ran for mayor.
Yep, back in 1995.
Yep, and we went to many of the same schools. I know you're a graduate from Marvin Elementary School, and I do believe your political career started really early. Didn't you have some sort of written thing into Mayor Collins or
Yes,
something
I did.
like that?
Yeah. Thank you, and thanks for having me on the show today. I appreciate it. Thanks, Dominic. Yeah, actually, as a matter of fact, I'm a fifth-generation Norwalker, so my family has long roots back into the city, which I'm very proud of, and nice to be able to still live there and have my family there as well. And yeah, I did when I was in, I think, third or fourth grade. I wrote a letter to then Mayor Bill Collins about litter at the beach and getting litter removed at the beach. Actually, I wrote 2 letters to him because I was that precocious, I guess. And he actually wrote me back. And that really is one of the things that I think propelled me and inspired me into public service, because I remember writing a letter. Now, when you're that young, you probably hear your parents or somebody talking about things. But for some reason, for me, it got me something in my gut to say, something needs to be done about that. So I pointed out the problem to the mayor, and then I remember he wrote me back, and I was just very, very excited that he wrote me back. As a matter of fact, I still have the letter, the 2 letters that he wrote back to me, framed on my wall right now, and I point that to him. But let me just share one more story about Marvin School. I was just in Marvin School the other day, and I saw the kids there, and I always think for a public official, it's very important for us to kind of pay it forward, and to make sure that we're out there in the faces of people who we represent, and that especially kids, because lots of times, I mean, I ask, whether I ask kids or adults, I say, look, do you think we spend all our time arguing and fussing and fighting and hammering each other? And lots of times your hands go up, and I'm like, well, what if I told you that a lot of what we do in Hartford anyway is bipartisan? We work together, and you can see me at the store locally, you can see me at the beach, you come up, say hi, I'm a pretty accessible kind of guy. Anyway, the point of all that is, so I go to the schools, and I said to them, when I was in 5th grade at Marvin, I was elected on the student council, go figure, right? And so I wrote a letter to the new mayor at the time, Mayor O'Connor, Tommy O'Connor. Do you remember that name at all, Tommy O'Connor?
I remember Mayor Collins.
Yeah.
I think I didn't really pay attention too much to politics.
I was as an elementary school student, I guess. And so I wrote a letter to Mayor O'Connor, and I said to him, I'd like to have you come to Marvin School to meet the kids and to student council, and he agreed to do it. So he came, and I was so excited. Because when you're that young, somebody once told me this: the only people you know are the mayor and the president. That's like the 2. If you know any politicians, just the mayor and the president.
That's it, right? Yeah.
And so I have a picture on my office next to the Bill Collins letters with me shaking hands of Mayor O'Connor, and my mother framed it and blew it up for me. It was an old Kodak, Yeah. And so I brought it to the kids, and I said to them, in this library. That's since been renovated a little bit. I said, this is where I had this, because again, having him respond to my letter saying that he would come to the school meant a lot to me. And his wife was very lovely person, and I always told her that story of how gracious he was. He was a former social studies teacher at Ponus Ridge Middle School, and so I think he understood that as well, and so that was really pretty cool. And so that's our connection. And then Marilyn, I grew up in East Norwalk, and then our connection in 1995 when Marilyn was running for mayor, and I just remember, boy, we ended up getting our butts whooped on that race, but it wasn't for a lack of trying on Marilyn's part. And I certainly knew that I worked hard, and we have since developed a very close relationship since then. And you know, she's just a wonderful lady.
She is, and like I said, I knew her from the time I moved to this country, which was back in '76, and grew up in East Norwalk. We were neighbors two doors down.
Down at Marvin Beach?
No. Over on Sasquatch.
Oh, Sasquatch, okay.
Sasquatch, yeah.
Yeah,
and
okay.
So we grew up in the same area, and her sons and daughter were my first friends in this country.
Right. Oh, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
And the reason I mentioned Marvin Beach is because in that area, I sell real estate. That's our other job since we're a part-time legislature, and I always say that over in Marvin Beach, Eddie Haskell lives somewhere, because it's like Leave It to Beaverland over there, because everybody knows everybody. Nobody moves out of the neighborhood. You tend to get carried out of the neighborhood, you know, because people live there forever, and it's just like everybody knows everybody, and it's very, you know, houses are close together, but it's very tight knit.
Tight knit community.
Yeah. So that's great. But she's just a wonderful person.
She is. She's actually our sponsor down in Norwalk, so she's our connection to get us on all the public access down in Norwalk. Good. But you know, I wanted to have you on because first of all, you're so accessible. I know you're like Mr. Facebook over there.
Thanks.
But I know that you've been there. Like if I've had questions about things, and you've always been there, and I see how accessible and how quickly you answer back to all your constituents. And now that you're majority leader, I know you have a lot more responsibilities in going through statewide. But I know last year when we were dealing with our brain injury issue, I know you and Gail Schlossberg, who you drive up to the Capitol together sometimes. Were instrumental in getting some extra funds to help reduce the wait list for the ABI waivers. And at the time, I guess there was so much commotion going on that day that I didn't realize exactly what got done within the process. But that helped our community out, and obviously, I support anybody who's going to go out there and work for us. So I'm always happy to go to your events and campaign. Besides, you have some of the best events in the state. So.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, you know what it is that I have a philosophy of that. You have to, as a public official, you really have to be accessible. And so if you go on my website, my home number is there. It's the only home number I have. Obviously the office number, my email, and I view myself as very accessible on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and whatever other kind of social media is out there, because we're long past the days where somebody would type up a letter, lick the envelope and send it to their,
send it out. Yeah, it's a different world right now.
Right. So and not as many people, as we know, read the newspapers, and so media is very fractured right now. So people don't get their information in one or two sources any longer. So it's important for me that I am accessible to my constituents, because I want them to feel like they can reach me, that they can, and I answer all my emails myself, which keeps me up at night late.
I was just going to say, now under the new leadership role, how is that affecting? It broadens out. It broadens out your constituency.
Oh, sure.
You're my constituent now. I mean, I'm your constituents now.
Right.
I'm up in New London, but you're the leader. If I need some heavy workload done, I got to get to you.
Right. Yeah.
So
well, it's I try to be a good time manager and just do that. Obviously, I have a family, and that's first and foremost on my mind. But I still think that it's important to. People are very cynical about the political process, and I don't blame them. And I don't blame them. And the thing is that I don't know that if people have an expectation that if they emailed their congressman or their U.S. senator or the president, obviously, if they're going to get an email back from that person. But I try and make it so that some of the cynicism can stop on my level, where I can people can at least feel like they can get to me, and whatever means that is most convenient for them. And that's why Dominic's come to my house, or the pasta parties that we've had during campaign time, where we have I invite the communities. I always tease people I invited 100,000 people to my house. Because that's our constituency, is about 100,000 people.
Yeah, exactly.
and where people come into an open house, they come into an ice cream party or a pasta dinner, and again, so that people feel that that I'm accessible to them, and have that ability where they can, if they have an issue or a problem or a question, they're like, oh, I can't talk to him now, especially now as majority leader. Because I've heard that, oh, geez, now with your new role, can you do all that?
You're going to be isolated.
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
right.
and you don't want to.
Cocoon up.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right,
and I could tell you that it could be easy to do that. I would imagine, because you are at a different level. You're looking at things from, say, 40,000 feet versus 10,000 feet. So that is that possibility to do, or just that you're just pulled in so many directions.
Well, from my experience, of course, heavy issues, disability issue, justice issue, two of my key ministry missions that I deal with, okay? I get a little bit upset with people who think they can't reach you, or they can't reach Joe at the congressional level. When, if you really try, you can get to the people that you need to talk to. And if you're passionate about your issues, you're going to find a way. And if you're straight with them, either side of the aisle is going to work with you. And you have to seek out. I mean, that from the citizens' perspective, it's your responsibility, my responsibility as a citizen, to go to you if I need help on the issues and where I am on certain issues. I think that's our obligation.
Right. Well, I think that's a great point. And I say two things to people. One is to them, if somebody has a problem, almost like my issue with litter at the beach, right? Lots of times people either call me and say, hey, there's litter at the beach. And I'm like, great, okay, but don't put that monkey on my back. That it's just my issue.
Right.
If it's such an issue, whatever the issue is, and I don't mean to make anything simplistic, but if it's a large, complex issue, just telling me doesn't get the problem solved. I need, as our democracy goes, you need a leader to fight for you, but you need the army behind you as well. And that, both of you know that as well as anybody else, because if you don't have the people who will back you up when you go kind of charging in to fix things, because change is hard, right? Well, change is very hard.
Yes, slow and hard.
Right. So you need the people there. But on the positive side, I will say, I always joke with kids when they come to the Capitol. Said I think it's easier to fight the state legislature than it is to fight City Hall, because the state legislature, we're pretty. Talk about my accessibility, but I would say for the most part, most legislators are pretty accessible. A lot of them answer their own emails, or they'll put their home numbers in and things like that, and they'll pretty accessible. But on the other hand, too, is that the way our system is designed in Connecticut, we do take a lot of time and effort to listen to the public, and what I mean by that is that I know that there's other state legislatures that when they say public hearing on things, they don't really mean a public hearing.
It's already a done deal.
Well, it's they'll have an hour public hearing, and if there's 5 hours of people, well, I'm sorry, we had an hour public hearing, we're done. And we have, so just for instance with the budget, any budget that's ever proposed, the Appropriations Committee has day hearings and evening hearings, and so legislators are literally there from 9 or 10 in the morning, sometimes until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then they come back again and do it all over again for a part-time job.
That's it's pretty.
And so I think that's a lot of dedication. Again, that's on both sides of the aisle. So and then on top of it, when a bill gets to the floor of the House or the Senate, or even in committee, we don't do time limit debates. So somebody wants to talk about something, as long as they want to talk, they can talk about it, Democrat or Republican. And other legislatures, like our U.S. House of Representatives, there's a time limit on everything, and if you're not in the majority, you're just going to get rolled. And we do not do that in Connecticut. And I think that that helps relationships, that helps preserve our democracy. I think that that has a lot of good good things to it.
Yeah, I agree, and I know we're up there a lot. Dominic's the last year's been up there far more than I have.
Yeah, they're thinking of hiring him.
He's my guy.
Yeah.
I keep telling him, he's mine. Leave him alone.
I almost gave him a badge last year.
Yeah. But the work he's done, of course, for us on our issues has been monumental. Of course, with the help. I mean, the other side. I mean, of course, my job is organizing communities, getting people out to vote, and stuff like that. Is the fundamental thing in community. This is the reason we do the show. We do the show to try to get to what I call the common folk, to get them engaged in being able to talk to you. Now everybody's working out there. They got families. They got to raise and everything. So we try to deal with the issues as clear as possible. Put the issue out there. We say why we're on the, what we believe we should do. But I have the other side too. When this year more than ever, we've been across
we
the.
were doing a lot with the juvenile
fencing issue.
And I literally, I think this month was the first time that I didn't go to one of Len Fasano's constituent meetings that he has once a month. Because once you learn where they are, the same people, show up all the time. And literally, from probably July through till February, I went to every single one of his.
Did you really?
Yeah, to get him on this issue, and hopefully to bring him in where he did finally sit down and he had a meeting with us and talked about their position, and we shuttled it off to the other side, and it was within reason. And we're hoping that there's some coming together on this. I know there's still some issues within that. I know nothing in the legislature or in legislation is perfect.
Right.
And there's certainly bargaining within that, but it's it's close.
Yeah, it's close. And I happen to think this is the best year so far up there. I kind of knew that it wasn't going to go through the last couple of times, but hopefully,
You're talking about in response to the Supreme Court decision?
Yeah, and the Miller decision and stuff like that. And of course, we do have to somehow come to an agreement on that.
I agree.
Because we got legal actions that are pending and stuff like that. So and it's we're talking a second look. We're not turning everybody loose. No. And that seemed to have been the position or misunderstanding in the past, sounding like we're open the floodgates and everybody's going to run out, when we're only talking about a second look.
Right.
And that's we're really hopeful that this year will be the year to get it done. But
Right.
You may know more about
Yeah, I don't
that.
know about it yet because
it hasn't got to you yet?
No, because I don't think it's been passed out of the Judiciary Committee yet.
Right.
So actually, it's two bills have been passed. Actually, one's a Senate bill and one's a House bill, and they're parts that are different, and so somehow they're going to
They have to work on.
commingle them.
Yeah, right.
To get to
But they
one
haven't
bill.
been voted out of the Judiciary Committee yet, have they? Okay.
Both bills were voted out.
Oh, okay. Well, they haven't hit our calendar yet, which is
that they
so
haven't.
once it hits our calendar, that's when I see it. Until then, it's someplace else.
Someplace else, right?
Yeah, because somebody asked me the other day. I was with the home builders, and their lobbyist was going through. It was a bunch of home builders from my neck of the woods came up to the Capitol, and they said we were talking, and I was just giving them a general update on things, and so they went through the bills that they're for and against, and one of the people said, the lobbyist said, okay, we're against this bill, and here's the reasons why, and then somebody smartly said, well, Senator Duff, where do you stand on the issue? And I said, I have no idea.
It hasn't got to me.
I said, I haven't gotten, I said, there's, I always, and this is another thing I tell kids, it's like, when we start, the legislature starts off, they said we start off with about 2,500 to 3,000 bills.
Yeah, huge.
And there's 21 committees. Right. And I said, unless you're on that committee, either the chair or vice chair or just a member of the committee, you don't know what, you have no idea what the other committees are really up to unless it's a big flashy kind of media issue. Right. This was a important issue to them, but not an issue that has grabbed any kind of headlines. And I said, well, once those things get to me as a majority leader on our calendar, that's when I hear about it. Like I know that there's a drone bill that passed out of the Judiciary Committee. They just passed a bunch of bills, I think, a few days ago, and that was probably in that batch of bills that they did. But the thing is about being a legislator is that as a part-time legislature, and I would assume maybe if you're not a part-time legislature, but especially as a part-time legislature, you have to know a little about a lot of things, and that's kind of you kind of get
Yeah.
expertise in not even expertise, but just general knowledge of the treetops of things.
Right.
When you chair a committee is when you get to be more of a subject matter expert in a way. If you're there long enough and able to kind of get into it, and I always joked with people talking about the beginning of my political career when I came in a special election. And I was in the House, and I was 149 out of 151 in seniority. And the Speaker of the House asked me at the time, she's like, Bob, which committees would you like to be on? And I said, well, Madam Speaker, I said, I'd like to be on finance and appropriations because they're the money committees, and that seemed like it'd be important for my district. And I'd like to be on transportation because that's on Fairfield County, and that seems like it'd be pretty good, right? She said, fine, that's wonderful. She said, I'm being on banks, energy, and housing. And that's how. And then actually, when I got on I ended up in the Senate. I ended up chairing the Housing Committee, chairing the Banks Committee, and chairing the Energy and Technology Committee. So it ended up working out okay. But this is my first year not on a policy committee, so it's a little odd in a way. I mean, it's amazing how something else fills in the time. There's nature abhors a vacuum kind of thing.
Right.
But not being on a policy committee this year is my first year not being on an energy committee. It's very interesting and a little weird.
I know I'm taking part of something, and I'm sure that that your committee was involved with, because I'm actually getting solar.
Oh, are you really? Good.
I'm taking advantage of the Solarize program that they're putting forth in our community, and they're going to put it up on solar lease.
Oh, great.
On my house. So I'm sure that was something that was
we've done a lot of that stuff. As a matter of fact, Connecticut is considered a national leader in conservation and clean energy. We have the 7th fastest growing jobs for clean energy in the country. We had the nation's first green bank, and it's something that has been replicated by New York State and probably other states as well. So, from an energy standpoint, we've really come a long ways. I mean, we some of the problems we have with our, people ask, why did my electric prices so high? And some of that has to do with our own policies of we don't have coal plants. Nobody, if I asked somebody, if I said the towns that the show appears, I said, how would you like to have a power plant in your backyard? And most people would say,
no. Well, they took them down. The Sooty 6.
Well, the Sooty 6 came down because they're too expensive to run, and that's actually going to save us money. To have those come down. We do have the coal plant in Bridgeport, which is still expensive. But because of the fact that we run on natural gas, that cost, and we have philosophies about how much clean energy we need to procure. But beyond that, even the fact that we have capacity issues coming into the state, meaning that the pipes, because we're natural gas dependent, the pipes that we have to come in to the state from every place else where the gas exists are smaller than they need to be.
They got to be,
right. So here's the best analogy. Just imagine I-95 in the morning. You have three lanes of traffic. You really need 5 lanes of traffic. Well, on the hottest and coldest days of the year, we need 5 lanes, and we only have 3 lanes. And so the price spikes when that happens. And so some of it is under our control in the state, but most of it tends to be very regional. And Governor Malloy has been really very aggressive, which I appreciate, because energy policy is I like it and I find it interesting, but for the most part, most people don't. It's like, let me turn the lights on, let me plug my stuff in and keep my bill down. And I get that, but energy policy is pretty complicated. But he's trying to work with the other governors in New England as a region, which we need to do in order to be able to bring down the cost of energy, because you've got to do those pipeline and capacity issues. You've got to bring your transmission lines down from Maine, where they generate electricity a little bit cheaper. And years ago we had the Middletown to Norwalk line, and the Bethel to Norwalk line, and those lines, as controversial as they were, have helped to close down some of the City 6 plants, and they only run about 12 days a year, but because of nobody ever wants rolling blackouts, the system operator pays them every month to be ready to go at a moment's notice. And so they're on what's called reliability must run contracts. And then on top of that, this is the federal rule. So if they say we're going to on a day, so they get paid anyway, and then they're on a day that that they need to come on say a hot summer day, right? And they need to charge up because everybody's got their air conditioners on, and they say, okay, well, we're going to charge, you know, say 50 cents a kilowatt, just say, as an example. They get paid 50 cents a kilowatt because it's the auction, and then everybody else gets paid 50 cents a kilowatt. So even a place like Millstone that may only normally charge, say, 2 cents a kilowatt, they get paid 50 cents. Everybody gets paid 50 cents.
Everybody gets the boot.
Everybody rises to the top.
Well,
it's a great deal.
Yeah, well, it's a great deal, but when trying to explain the grid,
except for consumers, obviously.
To the consumer, I don't believe that our consumers really understand where they get the, you know, throw on the switch, and where they get the electricity and how that grid works, and where it comes from, or the gas or whatever you're talking about, that now needs to be structurally enlarged, like everything else. Okay, that's costing us a fortune.
And it's happening. The changes are happening.
They are.
Slowly. They're happening. They need to happen a little bit quicker. The FERC rule, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission rule, of having everybody bid up to that number is bad for consumers, and that should be changed. We can't change that in the state, obviously. So we've got to work, and that's why Connecticut has worked so hard to promote conservation and clean energy, because the cheapest energy, as former Commissioner Dan Esty would say, is the energy you don't use. So, and we have saved a ton of greenhouse gases. We've saved people a ton of money by really pushing that conservation piece out there. I mean, you know, frankly, if you, and now we're starting to subsidize the LED bulbs, but you know those little squiggly bulbs that are out there, we subsidize that. You subsidize that. We all subsidize that on electric bills, so that when you go to you know, wherever you buy those bulbs,
things,
they were generally in line with a regular incandescent bulb, and that was on purpose, so people would buy those. And all I know is that when I put those all in, my electric bill went down a lot. And now we've kind of moved past the squiggly bulbs into the LED bulbs, which are even more energy efficient.
And a lot safer.
Yeah, and a lot safer, yep. There's nothing that's perfect, so you go from good, better to best, hopefully. And you try and do that. But and then also the solar stuff. The solar has come way down over the years in price, and you can basically get it installed on your house for free, practically.
I'm on a solar lease, which is 20 years, and it's no money down, and they maintain and monitor the system, and it's probably about I think $70 or $80 less than my current bill on a regular basis. So I know, you know, my bill's not going to go up. I know one of the big things that was coming through that you guys were dealing with was the other end with the electric companies. You still need to have a hookup, because there are times when you don't have that energy. You're giving into the system at sometimes. You're taking back out of it. They try to match the size of your system to your energy usage throughout the year. But in the summer, you're going to produce more, and in the winter, we're still stuck in the same position, which is. There's less sunlight in the winter, so it's not going to produce as much electricity, and people are going to be more dependent, you know, on the electric companies with the gas and everything else. So it's, you know, like you said, it's no technology's perfect, but getting a good, you know, mixture of different things is helpful, and certainly when they put in bigger pipelines, that's gonna help.
I mean, the thing is, people ask, well, why is it cheaper in other states? Well, most other states have coal. They use coal to generate their electricity, and that's, you know, that's very dirty. Here, you know, and the winds move west to east, so you know, we already get the coal emissions from out west. We can't, if we did that here, it would just, you know, kids would be in the hospital every day with asthma, and we'd have, you know, far different air quality than we do in Connecticut. I mean, you know, we don't have the greatest of air quality, so even adding on that would be worse. So we just continue to work in that direction. The biggest technological advance for your solar, anybody else's solar, would be a battery that actually can store the energy, and then it kind of goes back out when it needs it. That technology is not there yet. I think I'd say in the next 5 to 10 years it'll be there.
I think Elon Musk has announcements that he wants to make along those lines.
Right, he's working on it,
Yeah,
right?
he's working on it.
Working on.
There's a lot of people working on it.
A lot of people working on that stuff, right?
It's just one of those things where whoever comes out of it first
is gonna
make a lot of money.
Make a lot of money.
Probably put a lot into it. Can I give you one more thing, real quick?
Okay, yeah,
so,
sure.
So just for your listeners, because some people say, well, how can I reduce my energy charges? And I say, okay, one thing is, get the squiggly bulbs or the LED bulbs for sure. Okay, and just throw out the old incandescent bulbs. I know some people say, oh, I like those better, but those really are energy hogs. So you can really reduce your bills by getting those things. Secondly, is that there's a thing I always talk about. It's called phantom energy load. And phantom energy load is basically when you have things plugged in that you don't use all the time, or things that generate heat. So, for instance, if your cell phone chargers, lots of times people keep their cell phone chargers plugged into their outlets without the cell phones there.
Without the cell phone.
Well, that generates heat and electricity. That, even though it's plugged in and nothing's there charging, you're still using electricity. A toaster oven. If you don't use your toaster oven all the time, unplug it. If you have a room like say a formal living room, or your finished basement that kids are long gone out of the house, you still got everything plugged in, unplug everything if you're not going to use it all the time. Like our formal living room, we have a 1939 house, so we're probably never in the living room that often. Unplug those lamps so you're not generating electricity. And it's amazing to see when you do those kinds of things. Even a dryer, your washer not so much, but the dryer, because it generates heat. Unplug that dryer when you're not using it, and then plug it in when you are using it. Now, some people say, oh, that's too inconvenient. But if I told you might save, $5 or $10 a month on your electric bill, is it convenient or not convenient? That's a personal decision.
Exactly. Right,
but you can, things like that. And some of the overhead lights that I have in the hallways, I only put one bulb in instead of two, because it's made for two. But nobody says I have to put two in, and nobody's run into each other yet. So just various things that you can use. It's like unplug your computer if you're not using it, even though a lot of those things are Energy Star. But there's really lots of things that we can do ourselves that will turn off things so that you're not needlessly using power when you don't have to. Don't have things plugged in when you don't need it, especially things that generate electricity. Like coffee maker generally has a clock on it. You're probably going to leave that thing plugged in. But other than that, look around the house. We do, because I have a community. We're in the healthcare business, and we take care of I call them extended family members that we care for and stuff like that. And we use a lot of energy, and but I try to watch what we got on and everything else, and not make it so it's inconvenient to the individuals that we're taking care of, but that you're trying to save on your energy bill. But I had to tell the electric company, hey pal, I have oxygen tanks in the house, I got this here and stuff like that, because they actually called me and said, for some reason your household is way in connection with your neighbors. You're using all this energy. I said, well, don't you understand? It's a disability house. It's a community that has disabled people in it, and they have oxygen tanks and stuff like that. And that's the reason. They didn't know. Right. Yeah, and you don't want to inconvenience folks.
And you don't want to, but there is the wisdom. I didn't know about the toaster. That's interesting.
Well,
right?
I think when you're talking about saving money, I know the biggest issue on everybody's mind is what's going on with the budget. And I know we're I guess on to the next section of how this gets negotiated, because the governor gives you guys his budget, and then appropriations has different hearings on things.
Right.
And now, I guess, what's the next step within that?
Right. So the governor proposed his budget in February, And like any governor, you know, they propose. The old saying is, the governor proposes, legislature disposes, right? But I think that's an overused term, I guess. But because probably at the end of the day, 90% of what the governor proposes is what's going to happen. There'll be tweaks, I guess. But in that, I would say again, for any budget that's out there, I mean, we have some real issues from a deficit standpoint, and but we're like many other states as well. I mean, half the states in the nation still have deficits.
Serious,
and it's not just blue states or red states. It's both. And
it's both.
You know, the only one of the states that's not that way is like South Dakota. Then they're fracking. So we're not fracking here in Connecticut to the which is helpful for a number of people, I guess, right?
And Colorado sells grass.
Right. Right. Hand over fist, yeah.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, it's you know, revenue streams are up in a number of areas. It's just not up enough. And you know, here's what I try and tell people. You know, our budget is actually $1 billion less than it was a few years ago. So there's less spending. We have 500 less employees than we did 4 years ago, state employees. So we're down there. We have, you know, but our job growth has been the fastest since the 1990s. So, you know, things are looking up. It's just not, it's just like, you can almost think about it where you can see the sky or the, you know, the sun coming out, but it's just, there's a lot of clouds still there, but you can see that round yellow.
And it depends on the area too. When we talk about job development, what you know, we're still hurting in the low end market where you know, we got a lot of poverty. We got a lot of poverty people and stuff in our state, and where we're going to get those jobs, I don't know. I mean, given you know, how things are developing and like manufacturing. I mean, manufacturing is a different level now. That you know, and I see that we are experimenting with some startup companies and stuff like that are coming to the state with manufacturing, which is the digital stuff. I mean, and that happens to be, I believe, that happens to be the wave of the future that you have to look at, that we're in a historical change right now, and we're going to lose a lot of people. I think that's the sad part. You know, education has to be key, which seems to be where we're developing. Corrections in justice, it seems that we're letting people with lesser problems out, and hopefully the direction is to close some of those prisons.
They're very expensive.
Very expensive, outrageous. I mean, community control is the way to go. You know, probably half the cost or
less,
less than that. Okay, so I mean, there are a lot of things that our governor is doing right, and then on top of it, though, you have a whole infrastructure that hasn't been dealt with since World War II. Like the bridges, the roads, and stuff like that. That's huge.
Yeah. No, a lot of bills are coming due now.
And
exactly that presents challenging times, obviously, especially when the economy's not humming at full strength.
And you're sitting in the hot seat.
Yeah. Feels a little warm here.
The governor's going to blame you.
No,
you know, that's what's going to happen.
Hey,
and the people are going to blame you guys. You know.
Well, you do the best you can. And, you know, Connecticut, just to get back to your point about education, Connecticut's sweet spot has always been our educated workforce. And that's something that we have to hold near and dear. And actually, our education, our graduation rates are up. We're closing the achievement gap. We're, you know, getting more kids prepared for the workforce. We had a early college academy, NECA it's called. There was one that started in Chicago and New York City and then Norwalk. So, and then I think there's going to be one in New London maybe, or one someplace in Eastern Connecticut.
Right.
And so I'm very excited about that. But, you know, we've really got to continue to focus on education, because while we do still have some lower tech manufacturing here in the state of Connecticut, really, again, probably more of our sweet spot is more of the high-end, high-tech manufacturing.
Exactly.
And especially as, you know, people are looking for jobs and looking to grow jobs or bring their businesses here. You can't grow or organically grow or bring your business here if you don't have the educated workforce to meet them. So that's really, you know, and here's the thing, we're never going to be a part of the race to the bottom in Connecticut. You know, it's just the people here expect too much. They expect services. They want, you know, clean air, clean water. I mean, not that anybody else doesn't, but we have a population that really demands these kinds of things.
Exactly right.
And so those services cost money. So we're never going to be, you know, saying that everybody's going to have a low-wage job, or you know, because ultimately you lose, because sooner or later those jobs they leave Connecticut, then they go to, say, you know, down south, and then once they're done going down south, they go
out of the country.
Out of the country, and then when they're done out of that country, they go to another country. So it's just a race to the bottom.
Right.
You can never catch up.
No.
So the thing really is to have, you know, we have, again, Jackson Labs that's out there. That is we're bringing in scientists from all over the world. One who's almost nominated to be a Nobel Prize winner, almost won it, and hundreds of jobs that are, you know, really good paying jobs, that are smart jobs, that are going to be part of the future. But not to say that manufacturing is not important, because it's very important, and manufacturing will always be important. And you do have to have diversity of manufacturing, low, middle, and high end stuff. You know, I have a story from years ago where Pitney Bowes said that they had sent some of their manufacturing down south. Georgia, I think it was, had given them the land. They built the building for them, and they had to hire a bunch of employees. And then guess what? They couldn't do the job as well as they had to come back. Right.
Well, Honeywell did the same thing. They sent them to Arizona and stuff like that, and they were trying Mexico. This was years ago. They had to come back. They had to go back to Boston, because they didn't have the workforce to the quality that they needed. Where the center of education is, that's where your workforce is going to be. And if you look around the country and you look at the key universities and you look around them, all those areas are doing fine, because that's what you have. You have the intellect capacity, you have the education, and it's key. I mean, that's what I'm glad about in London that I'm seeing, is that, you know, the focal thing has been education, and a lot of people don't understand. Education costs a lot of money, and it's diverse too. You're not only talking one thing; you're talking about diverse types of things. Again, I'm looking at my age. I look towards the digital age. I look at manufacturing into the digital, the print stuff that's coming out. That, I mean, where they're going with that stuff is unbelievable. I mean, you can make an AK-47 with a printer. That's a scary thing. At the same time, you'll be able to do in your home where they're looking for with digital manufacturing. You can just make about anything. You can make your coffee cups. You can make, it's amazing.
The 3D printing is an amazing technology.
And all of these, I mean, I think what happens is our workforce and our population does not understand the level of the scientific stuff that is going on in the country right at this point. I mean, there's a disconnect.
Right.
And we need to have everything turned around so it's keeping up with what's going on.
Well, part of it too is, you know, recognizing our place in the world for Connecticut. We're a small state with 3.5 million people, and 169 towns and 162 school districts. That presents opportunities and challenges at the same time. And, you know, it's better for us to think of ourselves, I mean, each town has its own characteristics, and that's fine, and we are not always open to change here. But I think we would economically be more successful if we really thought of ourselves as a state and trying to see, okay, how can we plan better as a state, you know, rather than 169 towns, but also still keeping in the characteristics of the various communities and things like that. So, you know, that's obviously important, but I think Governor Malloy's been right about looking at, like, our energy, looking at it from a regional standpoint of multiple states. Because if you try to fit all the New England states in together, it's still not going to be a quarter the size of Texas, I don't think, right? So, or any Midwestern state, you know. So we're small over here. We've got to think a little bit more strategically. And, you know, you both know as well as I do that there's cities in China that we've never heard of that are larger than New York. You know, and they're doing, you know, sooner or later I think their economy is a little propped up, but I think we're gonna, you know, they have high-speed trains from one place to the other, and they just, I mean, you know, they don't even know the words eminent domain because of the fact that they just do it.
They do it.
You know, we at least respect property rights and try to go through our process.
Right. Their process is very different than ours.
Hi, you're here. You got 10 minutes to go.
Here you go.
Yeah, you're going over there.
You need somebody.
Yeah, right. And nobody would think of doing that here, obviously.
No, obviously.
But you know, from a standpoint though of trying to think big and trying to react to kind of the global realities that are going on right now. That's how we need to shift our thinking a little bit into.
Well, I even in my area, or in New London, we try to explain to them. You know, we got the port, the Panama Canal opened up. We got a great opportunity for shipping coming in there, and the right thing was you got to fix the rails because you got to send this stuff someplace else. I mean, you have to be able to think in that wise area.
Right. Well, Congressman Courtney has been excellent.
I know.
In trying to get that
wonderful.
done.
Oh
yeah. It really is.
He
so
did a lot of work on that.
Yeah. So is that going to happen?
Oh yeah. They got the money. He got the money. He got the big money for it. That's going to happen with the rail, and of course we got the water, the big development with the waterway coming in. Senator Maynard worked heavily and hard on that, along with Joe and all our folks from the area and Kathy and all them. They did a wonderful job, and I don't think our people understand that that's coming.
Yeah.
That's right around the corner.
Well, that's going to be a real game changer for Eastern Connecticut.
You got to be kidding.
It's going to be a real game changer.
Big time.
Yeah. But see, those are the things that you look at, and it's so obvious as the things that need to get done.
Oh, exactly.
And that's the part about the politics that's frustrating. It takes so long to get it done. And I mean, again, you want to make sure that you're doing it right and you're spending your money wisely, and that you obviously communicated the vision.
Right.
But these kinds of things that it's just such a slam dunk.
Well, you're fixing generational problems, and that's some of the difficulty when you talk about transportation in Connecticut. All these highways were built from the mid-50s up through the very end of the 60s, early 70s. So the difficulty is all these bridges, they were all built 60 years ago, and they're all, they have a limited time span that they have. I know, they're fixing New Haven with the 91, 95 interchange. They're doing the Stratford Bridge. I know probably the Yankee Doodle Bridge is kind of next along those lines that you're hoping's not gonna fall apart on the in between. But all the buildings stopped in the 70s, and now it's like, instead of saving up the money, everybody kind of is like, okay, everything seems to be fine through until you get to that moment when it's like, oh, now we really have to fix it.
Right. I mean, it's. I remember actually the Yankee Doodle Bridge getting fixed when I was in middle school, and they said it was about a 3 to 4 year project, and I said by the time they're done, I'll be able to get my driver's license. That I remember, because they closed off the entrance on East Avenue to the Yankee Doodle Bridge, and so that, thinking back, that was a while ago. They've done that project, so I'm sure that it's one of those things. I mean, the governor's put out a very aggressive $100 billion plan on transportation, which I applaud him for. It's 30-year vision. I mean, it's thinking big. What's difficult for people to kind of get their arms around is, how do you pay for it?
How do you pay for it? Yeah.
But part of it is you don't need to have a plan right now for year 30. Things change
incrementally. You do it in increments, and again, the vision needs to be big. You have to think big. It's in business or whatever. You've got to be able to, and a lot of people just can't get their brain around that. I mean, okay, you have to have the vision. You have to understand where you're going, and if you can't.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I heard a radio ad yesterday where somebody said, they were just spoofing something. They said, "That's the best small idea I've ever heard in my life." Great small idea. And nobody ever gets credit for small ideas, or pat on the back for saying, "Hey, way to go with that small idea." So you do, especially these days where so many things require attention. And I say to people that there's so many projects need help. Like, for instance, the Walk Bridge in Norwalk is a $600 million project. And that
which you got a lot of federal funding.
Yeah, thank goodness. We would have done it on our own if we had to, but that gives us a lot more breathing room.
Yes.
The Merritt Parkway interchange, that was a promise made 20 years ago. We got to get that thing finished. The Mixmaster in Waterbury, that's about a $7 billion project.
Yeah.
Hartford Viaduct, $5 billion project. So, was it Dirksen Everett who said, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, sooner or later, it's real money? It's real money.
Yeah.
These are expensive projects that are real
money. They're all
money.
expensive. Yeah, exactly right.
And that's what you got to do. So, so we're going to have those conversations about that. I mean, it's at the same time where there's the greatest need for transportation, people are actually driving less. And their cars are getting better gas mileage.
Exactly.
So the old way of being able to pay for these things through a gas tax is almost as a dying revenue source because of that. So it's great environmentally, right? That cars get more miles to the gallon, and we're all happy now paying less money for gas. I know I am.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the other source that got hit was the gross receipt tax. Which
Right.
Is based, if it's on a higher gas level, then you
if,
get more revenue for it.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody predicted that gas prices would come down. And now we just heard again yesterday that the oil fell to $50 a barrel again because of a glut of oil, which certainly inside I kind of, I'm chuckling and I'm very happy about that. And
then you know that the revenue on the other
the
side
revenue
is not going to come in there.
I only have this glee because I know that the oil companies are not feeling, I don't feel sorry for the oil companies because they never felt sorry for us.
No, they don't feel sorry for us. And again, all those things that are dictated by things far beyond our control. You're talking about world situations and stuff like that. We make a couple of agreements with other countries, and all of a sudden, the prices are going to go up again. So on the one hand, right now you got a glut, but we know that's not going to be.
So the mantra is don't screw up this time.
Exactly right. Kind of stay on the balance.
Keep doing what we're doing with energy conservation and clean energy, and keep pushing through those because.
You got to push.
Darker days will come again when prices
go up, and again, that's part of the vision and part of the planning. I mean, you got to learn from what happened before. If you're not learning from what happens before and where things are, then you're going to get yourself in real trouble.
Right. Exactly.
And it's really great. Oh, good, the gas is down, and it's down right now. But guess what? We make some deals with Russia and a couple of other things happen, and guess what? There you go again. We're going to be right back up.
Yeah. So. I do have to say, though, paying under $3 a gallon is actually pretty nice.
I'd like to see it around $1. $1.65.
Wouldn't we all, right? Yeah, I know.
At 40 a barrel, it could without taxes. At $2.25, it'd be okay.
I've seen it at $2.25.
$2.25.
You got to know where to go.
To get it. $2.25 is.
Milford's a good place, right?
Yes, they got cheap gas.
Yeah. I was up in Maine. The gas in Maine was cheaper than down here.
Really?
Probably.
40 cents a gallon cheaper.
Oh, interesting. Well, it's cheap. People always compare us to New Jersey. And I say it is cheaper in New Jersey than it is in Connecticut on a per gallon basis. But we went to a bat mitzvah back in December, and by the time we got done paying the tolls, it's high. I know. On
exactly
a per gallon,
right.
It's higher.
It's higher.
It's higher.
Exactly
So.
right.
Which I guess are border tolls kind of.
That's not gonna. I don't think border tolls
off
are.
the books.
I don't know that we could do it federally, and I don't know that it's even constitutional to do border tolls. I mean.
Big arguments.
Yeah, large arguments. That's not settled at all.
You can't believe this, but how fast our shows go. I got about 2 minutes left. I can't believe that we move kind of quickly.
Lightning. It's time for the lightning round.
Well, I want you have a constituency out there. Okay. I mean, really terrific to have you on the show.
Oh no, my pleasure.
Because you're always informative and again, congratulations for the leadership position. I'm glad to see that you're there. And
we were both pulling for you.
I appreciate it.
We were talking to everybody up for it, too.
We were heavy on that. We were a little biased.
I appreciate the bias.
But you got a constituency out there. Maybe you want to say something to them.
Sure. Absolutely. And again, thank you for having me out here, and thanks to the crew back there who's keeping the lights on for us and everything else. Just that it really is an honor to serve the folks of Norwalk and Darien. I love the job, and I still continue to love the job, and I just hope to continue to work for them in a way that is meaningful and that moves our state forward, because obviously my district comes first, but you want to do things that moves the entire state forward, and still staying true to who you are. And that's really my goals, is to make the state a better place and just do the best you can, and just to work hard and to make sure that you're listening to the folks who sent you there.
What I really love about you, Bob, too, is you're honest. You're like me. You have a constituency that does come first, and they got to know that they come first, and you serve them, and then you do a greater job, which is terrific. I mean, that's really, really good. And Dominic, I'm going to go right to you, because who we got coming up?
Well, tonight on our live show we have Paul Formica.
Oh, tonight, yeah.
So we're doing the other end of the aisle.
We're going to do two shows
today.
And we got Paul. Paul's going to be on.
And then probably Michael Passero if we're seeing it. And then we have another Norwalker. We're having Bruce on the week after that. Bruce Morris, yes.
Bruce Morris. And Bruce is the head of the
Black and Latino Caucus.
Black and Latino Caucus. I love Bruce. Bruce and I get along good. Thinks I'm the hammer, like Gary. I want to say, okay, to all you folks out there, we're going to probably run the street. We really appreciate you allowing us in your home. I hope you find everything informative. We've had a lot of nice, wonderful guests from all over the state, because we are all over the area now, thanks to Dominic and other people, and we could be going anytime that my crew back there would like to run the street. We're ready to take off.